Welcome to this webinar. We at INCOSE Sweden try to do these monthly whenever there's not a physical event. So I'm happy to see so many joining in here. Hopefully to see also many of you on our physical events, which I will announce at the end of this meeting. But before we get to today's topic, let me just show a few slides on INCOSE, because there may be some people who are not familiar with INCOSE, maybe some from PMI or Project Forum or so. INCOSE, the International Council of Systems Engineering, now some 35 years, plus 36 years, but it's the Global Society for Systems Engineers and those that are somewhat interested in the topic, I would say. It's built around the network, I guess, the 20,000 plus individuals that are members, divided into chapters, like just we have here, the Swedish chapter, but there are about 50 of those around the world. And there's also a corporate advisory board that sort of guides the organization in terms of strategic directives, directions, and so on. What we'll actually base this one on today is it's the work that's been going on in one of the 50 plus working groups. So today, Mark is presenting on, I think, behalf of the Systems Engineering and Project Management Working Group. But there are lots of other working groups. So if you have any interest in a topic around systems engineering, I'm pretty sure that you will find a working group that is related to that topic. Those working groups also produce a lot of material, and that's what we actually then, as an organization, publish in terms of the handbook and lots of different guides. There is a regular journal and newsletters on the web, on the internet being exchanged. There's a tools lab and database for those that are interested in see and try some of the tools before buying them. And last but not least, we also have the professional development side that is providing a certification, but also for the members access to a competency framework and the professional development portal, where you can sort of build your library and your assets for learning. So events, that's where I guess where we are show our face to the external to both to members, but also outside the members, just like today. There are conferences, big ones like the International Symposium on an annual basis, touring around the world. We have the international workshop where the working groups meet in January, and then we have a number of local conferences, and then seminars, and webinars like today. So I think you will actually appreciate, maybe just if you have not done it, dig into one of these two websites and then look for information in general. The INCOSE.org, of course, the international one, and here locally, we have the .se, very appropriate for systems engineering, INCOSE.se. So as I started saying, this is something we do annually. And if you have suggestions for topics or presenters that you would like to have, present to the public, let us know. And here's the mail addresses. So for today, I think we'll let Mark talk, and he has promised to allow some time for questions and answers at the end. And we'll try to moderate those, but this is kind of informal meeting, so don't be shy. It's all here to exchange. There are no dumb questions. The only thing is dumb is not to ask questions when you have those. All right. So with that, I'd like to present Mark, and then Mark, I think I actually let the presentation to yourself. I mentioned that you're one of the co-chairs for the working group, but maybe you want to say a few more words about yourself and then take over the screen. So
I have a slide that introduces myself. So how about I take the screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share.
Right. See, does this work? Okay. So when I go to this mode, I can't see the chat. So we'll hold questions, or Tom, you interrupt me if I need to. All
Will
right.
do.
So here's a little bit about me. Um, I'm involved in both PMI and INCOSE, and for a time I was the international representative of INCOSE to PMI. You can see that I've written material for the INCOSE International Symposium. I presented, not what I'm presenting today, but a different topic on building program management offices. I currently work for a not-for-profit called MITRE, where I'm a department manager for enterprise program and risk management. My education background is I have a bachelor's in engineering from Stevens Institute of Technology and a master's degree from the University of Maryland. And before I came to MITRE, I did a fair amount of work for the space program. I was the lead system engineer for the ground system for the Hubble Space Telescope and the project manager for the Earth Observing System. So as you can see quickly that I have my hands in both the system engineering and the program management side of things. We're going to make this a little interactive. So since this is INCOSE, I'm guessing that most of you consider yourselves systems engineers. Are there any project managers out there? So let's use the raised hand function. Let's see if I can make this so I can see. So I don't see anyone raising their hand that they're a.
I know there are quite a few here.
I see TL and Tammy and LB. Okay, so there's some program managers out there, or project managers. For this presentation, I'm going to use the terms interchangeably. So let's start with a little experiment. And often when we present this to system engineers, there's an undertone that says, do we really need project managers? What do they do anyway? And so I'm not sure how many of you feel that way, but we're going to go back to the hand raising. So who has the responsibility for technical requirements? So if you think it's the system engineer, raise your hand. Oh, good, it counts for me. So I have 10, and how many people are 10 of 12? So that's pretty good. And that would be what the book would say. Okay, so yes, the system engineer should be in charge of technical requirements. So if you put your hands down, now who's in charge of managing the program's budget? Again, if you think it's a system engineer, raise your hand. Okay, so I don't see any hands, so that's good. So yes, the PM manages the system budget. At least that's the most the common answer. And now let's put some more items out there. So let's look at life cycle planning, external supplier relations, and risk management. So same question this time. If you think it's the program manager in charge of that, let's see your hands. So I have 3, 5, 7. Okay, so it's about half of the people. So I'm going to say that that was a trick question. And because the answer, someone's waiting in the lobby. So the answer is that those items are among several that are a shared responsibility. And we're going to talk more about shared responsibilities and where the tension comes in and how to alleviate the tension. In the end, the takeaway is there are going to be 2 slides. It's a bit of a checklist of things that you can do either as the project manager or as a system engineer to alleviate tension. All right, so we have joint responsibility. But what happens if the system engineer, who's responsible for technical requirements, I think we've agreed upon that, what happens if the system engineer accepts requirements that affect the budget? That's the project manager's job. Now we're getting into the tension, right? The system engineer says, I need this enhanced product, or there's a new upgrade. And the project manager says, I don't have money for that. Now we're into that real tension zone. And for the project managers in the group, the project managers, I've heard it called the iron triangle. I like the 3-legged stool, but it's the balancing of cost, schedule, and scope. And while it might be the job of the PM, but if the lead engineer isn't a partner, then it doesn't work, right? And what happens if it doesn't work? We get this thing called a tug of war. Is that a Swedish term that folks in Sweden understand, tug of war? Tom, is that an American term, tug of war, or is that international?
Yes.
It works fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you have, though, is both sides pulling on the rope in opposite directions. And if I had to give you a bottom line up front, it's on the right-hand side of this slide, which is that successful delivery of the stakeholder value requires contribution, collaboration, and cooperation across the multiple disciplines that it takes to run a project. And let's look, though, at what each discipline says. So on this slide, what I have is something that comes from the INCOSE website, and this shows the system engineering view. So system engineering integrates all disciplines into specialty groups into a team effort, forming a structured development process that proceeds from concept to production to operations. You know, is a project manager, I think I could replace system engineering by project management or project manager and write the same thing. I went out to the PMI. So for those of you who don't know, PMI is the Project Management Institute. It's an equivalent organization to INCOSE, but deals with project management. And I couldn't find an equivalent thing on their website, so I hunted a little more. And here's where the project managers come down. Project managers play the lead role in planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing out projects. So while INCOSE publishes this guidebook called the System Engineering Handbook, the Project Management Institute publishes something called the Project Management Body of Knowledge, and that's abbreviated PMBOK. But is there that much difference in each what system engineers are saying their role is to what project managers are saying their role is? And that's what starts to lead to the tension. So the elements of the tension are different practices, different ways of looking at the same problem, and each discipline goes along and says, we got to do it my way. And that leads to not valuing the other role and not planning for integrating roles and winding up in a project where the roles and the responsibilities are not only not clear, but they're not respected. And very often it's who works for who? Does the system engineer work for the project manager? Does the project manager work for the system engineer? And when we have projects where this is undefined, we have trouble, and trouble leads to things like this. Okay. So where do we start in integrating the two roles? And it's these 5 items that are the next level. You know, I showed you the bottom line up front, but these 5 items are the next level. And the first is the team has to recognize that they're all on the same team and they're all working to a common set of objectives. And the team understands those objectives and how each discipline contributes towards them. So understanding what the project manager does, what the system engineer does, what the hardware engineer does, what the software development team does, what the change control folks do, you know, go down what it takes to run, especially a bit of a larger project. And the team understands each other's role. And making that happen is a joint effort between engineering and project management. And actually, all of these things are. And then the team respects all of the roles and their associated contributions. So remember, when I started, I spoke about, you know, I've been to this where there's an undertone of the system engineers that says, who needs project management anyway? Well, that violates this, this 4th preset where the team respects all the roles and understands how they contribute. And the team values collaboration over competition. You know, that probably comes right out of the Agile handbook for those of you who know Agile. The Agile Manifesto is a set of items that read like that. Okay, so let's go back to who's in charge of what. And so in the blue box, we see what, and again, this is generic, different projects. Some of these things might move from one box to another, but the project manager is responsible for the goals, the objectives, the overall results, project and risk management. And then you're going to see that on the other side too, in the green box, where both are responsible for project and risk management. And the system engineers are responsible for the requirements, for system definition, for system architecture, for configuration management of the system. And then we get into where both are jointly responsible. And so when we integrate the roles, they have to really be set on where responsibility can be effectively shared, like risk management, external suppliers, quality management, and have the communications optimized for this. Now, I know there are different ways of learning, so this is pretty much the same chart, but I know different folks like to see things presented in different ways. Okay. I tell you what, Tom, how about I take a break here and open it up to questions up to this point, and you know, then I'll move on. Probably a fair breaking point for questions.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't have any questions in the chat, so please feel free just to unmute and then ask if there are any questions up to now. Okay. We have a question.
There are a couple questions in the chat now.
Yeah.
So why doesn't when I ask you to read them? Actually, let's see if I can do this.
Yeah.
Why do many organizations divide the system engineering into different areas, like system engineering for requirements, system engineer for T&E? Is that due to INCOSE? So the answer is that it's not due to INCOSE. You know, there's a system engineering handbook. INCOSE puts out guidelines, not rules. And each project team has to come up with their own, how are we going to do business? So dividing that into system engineering sub-disciplines, that would be a local thing, not an INCOSE thing. Okay, from JL, provided that the PM has a project scope and the system engineer should have a system perspective, there might be a tension of interest in long-term versus short-term scope. How should that be addressed? I'm going to go into this a little more later, but the bottom line is the two disciplines have to have an agreement and have to work together. That's really the bottom line, is that a lot of it is based on personal relationship, which is why we bring this both to INCOSE and to PMI, so that both the engineering team and the project management team are hearing the same message, which is, hey, realize that you're a multidiscipline team and work together. NASA has basically the same view. I can't read the details in my chat, but not surprised. Both are responsible for supplier relationship. How about other customer relationships? I think it depends on the specific customer relationship. And what I mean by that, if it's a technical supplier relationship, clearly it's joint. If it's something that's more PM related, could be a non-technical tool vendor. So it could be the vendor for their financial management system. Maybe they're not all. Customer relationships, though, are both. And it depends on the customer. Is the customer someone who understands technical decisions, or is the customer someone who doesn't get down into the technology and the system architecture? And it's really the job of, again, the PM and the system engineer to say, who's the best person to put in front of the customer for what they're asking here? Okay. All right, I'm going to go back here. So when we start talking about integrating the roles, we look at things like processes, tools, the organizational environment, and the competencies of individuals that make up the team. And so, what we don't want is for the PM and the system engineer to have a different engineering process, a different configuration control or configuration management process. These things have to be standardized between the two, and they have to agree. And so when that happens, we get to the middle column, and that is that we have a team that rapidly and effectively makes decisions, that they collaborate on the work, and that no one feels that knowledge is job security, and that knowledge is shared across the team. And then we get to the three-legged stool. We have schedule, scope, and cost, and they're all hopefully running smoothly, but we know that rarely happens anyway, even when there's good collaboration. So this is what I talked about earlier. Here's the takeaway. And if you go down to each of the dots, you can use that as a checklist for processes, practices, and tools, for org environment, for integrating competencies. I'm not going to read this, but Tom, you have the slides that can be passed out. And these are things that if you're a project manager or if you're an engineer that's not getting along with their project manager, you can use this as a guide to standardize, to collaborate, and to put into practice what you need to be successful. And there's a second slide for this. So it's not just those factors. They're contextual factors, integrating an organization and a culture, and performance. So these two slides are, what you can take back to your job and use is, how do I do this? How do I reduce the tension between system engineers and project managers? So the other thing I'd like to talk about today, let's do a kind of a 3-bullet summary. So we acknowledge that a complex relationship exists between project managers and system engineers. So that's the first step, is acknowledging that there's a potential problem or tension there. The second is that each discipline needs to understand their role and work together, not only to establish boundaries, but to understand the other roles and to collaborate wherever possible. And cooperation and collaboration lead to project success. What you see in the lower left is the leadership team, although Tammy, who's on the call, has now joined that team, of the PMSE working group. So what does the PMSE working group do? So the Project Management Institute and INCOSE have been working together for close to 20 years. And the main value is to do what I just spoke about, which is to reduce the tension and to increase the probability of project success. There was a book written, which you can get on Amazon or any of the other booksellers, which is Integrating Program Management and System Engineering. So that's one of the outputs of this PMSE integration working group. Another is that within the System Engineering Handbook, this group has generated now material on project management so that systems engineers understand project management a bit better. And the latest inputs have been in the area of work breakdown structure, WBSs, organizational breakdown structure, and it goes into significant detail on how to produce these items so that a system engineer understands the project management side of things. A couple of years ago, we were recognized, the working group from PMI that looked at the team and what they did. So we got a little award for that. And INCOSE has given us awards probably in 2 of the last 3 years on external collaboration and building a camaraderie between engineers and project management and reaching out to the project managers. Currently, I mentioned the System Engineering Handbook and I mentioned the PMBOK, but there's also a SEBOK, which is the System Engineering Body of Knowledge. And that's more of a wiki than the System Engineering Handbook, which is more academic. And the goal of the System Engineering Body of Knowledge is to collect articles and references on system engineering. And this has a much faster review cycle. So when we did the System Engineering Handbook, it probably took months of generating material, reviewing the material, experts vetting the material. Here on the SEBOK, it's a quicker review cycle for authors to submit updates and new articles. The URL for the SEBOK is sitting on the slide. So specifically, here are the, so the SEBOK Part 3 is System Engineering and Management, and also System Engineering Management. Here are the articles, and if, when you get the deck, there are links to the articles of both in Section 3 and in Section 6, which is SC and PM, and the titles that the working group is has volunteers developing material for. So everything from project planning to an overview of the PMBOK to the relationship between system engineering and project management. Where does this thing called portfolio management fit in? So that material is out there for you to look at. If someone would like to volunteer to write an article, let me know and I can be the interface and get you in into the group generating the articles. Generally, it's one person generating each of these articles. And what I'm not positive if all of them are covered, but if you're interested in writing an article, get hold of me and I can hopefully make that happen. And then a couple of references that we use for the material for this. So you have that background, and we can open it to questions. There's my contact information if someone wants to contact me. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tom to moderate questions.
Right. Thank you, Mark. And yeah, that is a good time to have questions. I maybe wanted to say also that I will ask you basically the working group, is that open for also non-INCOSE members? You know?
So I'm going to say there might be an official and an unofficial answer. And
Right.
the official answer might be no, and the unofficial answer is we're not checking membership cards at the door.
Right. So if anybody is interested in well, helping out or you know, it's
Right.
a really good insight into what's
And-
happening.
And there's you should get it, Tom, or there's meeting notices from the working group. So certainly to go to a community meeting of the working group doesn't require that you be an INCOSE member.
True. And I just put in the chat also that the SE Book Wiki is open for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
But if anyone's interested in learning more about the working group or attending a meeting, you have my contact information. But if you send it to me, I'll get it to the folks that manage the invite list.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's open up for questions. And again, you can type or you can talk. I was thinking maybe there's these days there are of course a lot of discussions around the agile practices and so on. Is that something that you're looking at in the working group, and do
So
you see a difference, a change in how practices are being, you know, how they're changing over time now?
just for everyone's background, so I'm certified as a scaled agilist, which means I've taken the classes and I've passed the test on scaled agile. And I've also studied lean portfolio management. I see that more in the PM side from a management point of view, and then from the system design part on the, I'll call it the engineering side of it. Just about everyone we see who's doing software engineering at some scale is moving towards a scaled agile or a derivative of scaled agile concept. I mean, that seems to be just taking over in the last 5 or 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I see Tammy is putting some questions out to people. If they're not going to ask questions, we'll ask questions of them. And that is, do you see tension within your organization? If you do, how does your organization deal with that? We can, make it more of a discussion than Q&A, I guess.
Yeah, if somebody wants to share something, yeah, definitely don't take the opportunity.
Right.
Another thing maybe in this also current change of practice a little bit is that some people would say that, well, we don't use projects anymore. You know, we have a continuous, so we're changing project managers to product managers, and then how do you see on that?
So I've seen that. In some cases, as a product manager, and again, there are differences in definition of product manager. I know in the Scaled Agile world, there's an official definition, but what I see is the product manager tends to be a requirements person and looks at the vision of the product over time, develops roadmaps for the evolution of the product, and is less worried about budget. Is less, the roadmap will tell a high-level schedule, and is less, and the project manager is still there to resolve conflicts. So, if one group thinks one thing, one group thinks nothing, the project manager, in some organizations, they delegate that to the Scrum Master, if it's a large software implementation. But the project manager still is generally reporting that has to go up the chain to senior management or to customers. There's the budgeting piece of it. So even in those worlds, there's still a value for the project manager. And especially when something goes wrong and they're looking for who to fix it and who to call in and say, how did this happen? What are your risks? What are you doing to mitigate the risks? So, a product manager is picking up some of what a project manager does, but there's still these other things that lead for project management. So I see you get attention when two groups are competing for the same responsibilities, right? In my organization, it might be the other way around, not covering all responsibilities. Does that lead to another tension, but not between project managers and system engineering? So that's a good point. And Tom, it relates back to your question. So what else is the project manager doing? Is the project manager is making sure that everything is covered, that nothing is being, there's not a duplication of effort, which wastes project funds. But that's another role of the project manager here.
I wonder if that's also a cultural sort of thing. The US tends to be pretty aggressive. I say that as an American, I'm sorry. But I feel like other countries are a little bit more laid back, and therefore they're not willing to step on others' toes. Could that be part of this?
I think it could, if I should step in here, and then it would be kind of interesting, and that's why also I think I wanted to have this webinar on this topic, because I think it would be cool to have some European Scandinavians to join the working group, because it may be a bit of different opinions about how you do those kind of things actually.
Right. So the working group historically, until like the last year, had a 3-person leadership team. So I'm on the leadership team where there are 3 official co-leads. One was French, one was British, and one was American.
All right.
So there is European representation. Obviously, there could be more.
Yeah. I think Scandinavians in particular are very much for consensus and maybe sometimes afraid of stepping on toes and so on.
Well, then
Just
I
some,
would hope that would guess that this is less of an issue for Scandinavians, that because they would naturally go towards the collaborative way of doing things.
Yeah, which often is, the best solution if you can get it in time and cost, so to say. And actually, that was another thing I wanted to comment upon, that when we say this tension about, and I think it was Jonas who put that comment in, that the short and long-term perspectives. And of course, I think as systems engineers, I think it could be good to have a bit more insight to the value of deliver in time and budget, because we often are really concerned about getting the right product out there, and not so concerned about maybe, if it takes another month or so. So again, I think it's just making those values clear from the beginning, so you have, again, a common value model, basically.
So you mentioned Agile earlier, so that's one of the precepts of Agile is to get the right product out there versus getting whatever you could get done in a certain time period. So Agile emphasizes getting the right product into the hands of users.
Yeah, well, I mean, then they maybe get something out there, but maybe you do some shortcuts for the life cycle perspective, so you may not get the long term. But again, it's a matter of implementation, I guess. Yeah. So we have a question from Robert.
Yeah. So I would say the way to best explain it is to take that chart that looked like a Venn diagram, and that should give you the how to explain it to people. So you not only have it verbally, but you have a chart you could show.
Yeah, and of course we will share this presentation, put those on our website following this webinar. Right. Some more questions?
The SE has the vision and the technical answer to, whoops.
Yeah.
Wait, I have to go back. It went down.
it moved, yeah.
It moved, so I need to move it back. The SE has the vision and technical answers. The PM makes it happen on time and within budget.
That's how it should work.
I think I saw Tammy put a heart there. I would put one too. Exactly. And then from Jacob, I see a great problem in dealing with clear goals and objectives in our organization. Most product leaders get vague directives and create consensus on what needs to be done via meetings, which may feel good for participants, but leads to great risk, especially over time when project members are replaced. Any ideas on eliciting clear goals and objectives? The only thing I would say there is to write them down. Is well, so when you talk about project members coming and going, what we would do is have what we call an onboarding mechanism. So as new people came on, there's something that the project lead can say, here's the goal of the project, here's what the various groups within the project team do, here's where you fit in, and take this deck with you and use it. If you have any questions, come on back.
Mm-hmm.
So onboarding is a clear thing that needs to happen, again, both from the engineering and from the project management side.
Tammy supports that. I would also say that not having too many goals, but maybe we always talk about the top 3 goals for the project and put those available to everyone. Right. Another comment there.
The small companies, sometimes they don't have enough people to staff a clear roles. So there was a slide earlier that acknowledged that sometimes the role of lead engineer and project manager is the same person on a small project and in a small company. The key to making that successful is the system engineer trained in project management, or are they trained in leadership? And when that happens, that can be successful. It can't be successful if you have a project manager who doesn't understand the technology. It's the same thing. But I understand small companies, they kind of merge some of these disciplines, but training is clear. So if a small company were to say, you know, Mr. or Ms. Engineer, you're now also the project leader, they should send that person out to get some project management training. So PM leads first. I'm not sure I understand that, Eric.
I think, Mark, this could go back to your comment before about who's your customer, excuse me, who are you dealing with, and who is the person to communicate best in that particular situation.
Right, I agree, and so in the end, if we put this on a chart, the project manager is who's going to be accountable to either the head customer or the big boss. And they need the engineer to be a partner, but I can't use a baseball analogy in Scandinavia.
You're okay with that?
Well, it's when they fire the manager, on a sports team. When the sports team doesn't perform well and they fire the manager, and the manager isn't doing any of the technical part of the team, the PM is going to be the one that gets called in when there's any kind of problems. And hopefully the relationship is such that the lead system engineer says, I'm going to go with you and support you, and we're going to explain this together.
Okay. I was thinking of one kind of fun exercise that we've done in some projects, is to have everybody to write down what they think their role is, and everybody else to write about what they think your role is, and then you compare notes. That's quite interesting.
That's good, because I've seen that done also.
Yeah.
And so Tammy and I have done research on how project managers and system engineers view each other. We don't have enough responses to the research, but generally we ask the same questions to both groups. And the difference in responses is amazing. That, how someone who says I'm a project manager answers the same question as someone who says I'm a system engineer. And from that research, we can see the tensions and the underlying issues that lead to the tension.
Basically, the systems engineers think that the project managers aren't technical enough, and the project managers think that the systems engineers are too far down in the weeds and aren't taking into consideration the overall success of the project, the needs of the project. It's very clear. I love somebody like Mark, who has the experience from both sides, somebody who is a systems engineer who also understands the project management perspective of it. And so, Mark, your point earlier about, if you have few resources on a project, making sure that the person playing that dual role has all of the necessary tools and experience or training.
Thanks, Tammy. Now we have a question from Matej.
Yeah, so Jonas asks something in the same line earlier. Project managers have full focus on delivering a project. A system engineer should have more in mind to stimulate platform and system thinking. This will lead to tension in your company. Any reflection on how to deal with that? So, I keep going back to how to deal with it is for people to acknowledge what they know and what they don't know, and be committed to collaborating and learning what they don't know so that they understand the other point of view.
Yeah. Okay. If any more inputs? Otherwise, I think we have a few minutes
Right.
left, of course.
Well, I want to thank you, Tom, and the rest of
Mhm.
the team in INCOSE Sweden for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And you have my contact information if anyone has any follow-up.
Yeah. Yeah, and please get in touch with the working group. I think we need more people to work on this interface. It's important. And actually, just a few more slides from me then. As I said, these slides will be available both on our website, but also on our YouTube channel, the recording. And so that will be announced also. Check out the next webinar, but before that, actually, we have the Nordic Systems Engineering Tour coming up, which is a physical seminars starting in Linköping in June on the 2nd, and then traveling down to Copenhagen and Hamburg. So there are 2 speakers that will do all 3 sites, and there are local speakers also, a one-day exercise. So yeah, check those out. Then also coming up in June, a bit early this year, 13th to 18th of June in Yokohama, Japan, is the International Symposium. So that would be first time in Japan. So interesting also see a bit of different cultures, because I think that's also something that plays a big role when we talk about the implementation of systems engineering, the cultural context. Everything what the handbook says, the standard says, has to be tailored to the environment. And it doesn't stop there, because in end of August we have the European and the Middle East, Asia and Africa conference, system engineering conference in Linköping here in Sweden. So yeah, now there's, the submissions, I think, for papers are already done, but then there will be 3 days of quite interesting webinars and seminars and tutorials, etc. So check that out. So with that, thank you, Mark and Tammy and all you participants. Hope that you have enjoyed this, and then see you soon again.
Right.
So thanks for today.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.